Vince McMahon resigned in shame and somehow returned in glory to make billions. That's the move only the super rich can manage, but he needs to stay as far away from the WWE as possible. Triple H has put the WWE into a great position, fending off serious encroachment from serious contenders in the meantime, increasing ratings, overseeing a huge increase in TV deal revenue, and making people proud to be wrestling fans and WWE fans again. Vince McMahon, every time he gets involved, risks throwing all of that into destablement and completely crashing the bus. Hit like on the video and let's talk about why we're done with Vince McMahon. We start by putting his leaving into context, explaining why, even on a professional level and a personal level, we need him far, far away. We start with the headline from Mark Raimondi on ESPN. WWE's Vince McMahon paid a total of $12 million to 4 women to quiet sexual misconduct allegations. Vince McMahon, World Wrestling Entertainment's long-term leader, allegedly paid out millions in hush money to a former female wrestler with whom he had a coercive sexual relationship. The details of this can be potentially harrowing, so let me warn you ahead of time. McMahon allegedly paid out $7.5 million to the former wrestler, who claimed McMahon coerced her into giving him oral sex, demoted her, and then decided not to renew her contract in 2005 after she resisted further sexual encounters with him, per the Wall Street Journal. The report details a total of $12 million paid out to 4 women over the last 16 years to quiet allegations. Vince McMahon was characteristically unaffected by these claims. In fact, it seemed to embolden him to come out on TV regularly and state essentially that he would be here forever. Then, now, forever, together. Essentially stating, there's no getting rid of me. That was the WWE under Vince McMahon. And as a WWE fan, it was very difficult to call myself that under the days of Vince McMahon's bold and forceful nature. Thankfully, I didn't have to experience this difficulty for long because goodbye Vince. We go then to The Guardian, who report about Vince McMahon retiring from WWE amid sexual misconduct inquiry. I chose The Guardian for this primarily because they mentioned the sexual misconduct inquiry. There is a whole lot of press, mainstream and wrestling media, who decided not to bother mentioning why Vince was retiring and celebrate him on his way out. To quote Vince McMahon at the time, "At 77, time for me to retire. Thank you, WWE Universe. Then, now, forever, together." We, of course, have seen Vince McMahon return since. The retirement meant nothing, as was immediately apparent when Vince McMahon returned to make money off this. Via the Bleacher Report, Vince McMahon agrees to sell WWE to Endeavor to form $21 billion live sports brand with UFC. So not only was he essentially forced to retire by these allegations, he would be forced to take a hell of a load of money because of it. WWE and UFC, which is owned by Endeavor, are merging to form a $21 billion global live sports and entertainment company. With the transaction, UFC was valued at $12.1 billion and WWE had a valuation of $9.3 billion. If WWE had a valuation of $9.3 billion and WWE was sold by Vince McMahon, who had a share of 51% of the company, I'm sure you can work out how many billions he made. A large part of the money that he made would be in stock options and essentially payback from the success of the companies. Now, Vince McMahon reduced the stock that he had in the company from 16% roughly to 12% roughly, so roughly a quarter of his total amount. This made him, or will be making him in the days to come, $670 million, which means that the amount that he has in stock is worth more than $2 billion additional, and this after, of course, he retired entirely. So while Vince McMahon has used the WWE to make himself as rich as possible, let's talk about what the WWE have done since. And here's the moment in which it becomes very clear to say that the WWE never needed Vince McMahon. Certainly not now, or then, or maybe forever. Back to ESPN, it is the dawning of a new era, how WWE moves forward without Vince McMahon. This is by Mike Coppinger. This lays out essentially what happened immediately after Vince stepped down. Stephanie McMahon, Levesque, as in Paul Levesque, Triple H, and Khan, Nick Khan, are now tasked with collectively filling the enormous shoes of Vince McMahon, a titan who has presided over WWE for 4 decades. With McMahon no longer in charge, his daughter Stephanie was named chairwoman of the publicly traded company and co-CEO alongside Khan. Levesque, a legendary wrestler who rose to fame in the 1990s, is in charge of talent relations and creative. Most keenly, I want you to focus on certain parts here. Inside WWE, there's optimism that Levesque's vision will lead to a product with an emphasis on quality in-ring work, edgier storylines, and more creative control for talent, a departure from McMahon's philosophy. They quote a wrestler now, Becky Lynch, stating it's a dawning of a new era. For me, it's crazy and sad because everything I've ever known about WWE always had Vince in charge. We wouldn't have WWE the way it is if it wasn't for Vince. He's somebody who believed in me and allowed me to do everything that I've done. We have the opportunity to change some things that maybe weren't so great that we didn't love, Lynch said to ESPN. I think everyone's very excited and optimistic because we know that the people in charge are some of the greatest minds in the business. Having Triple H at the helm of the ship is phenomenal. What he's done with NXT speaks for itself. What he did with the women's division and how he allowed us to change the business forever speaks for itself. I want to pick out that particular quote. How he allowed us to change the business forever. That is one of the main differences between Vince McMahon and Triple H. Triple H empowers, Vince McMahon instructs. I've certainly reported myself, LA Knight would not be in the position he's in right now if Vince McMahon were in charge. There were a few teasers of a McMahon return. Via Cultaholic, Vince McMahon back in charge of WWE makes major changes to WWE Raw. As I've reported previously, Vince McMahon is not back and has not been back in charge of WWE Creative, but he was overseeing scripts and making some changes to the ones that Triple H had already written. The WWE executive chairman has been on medical leave from WWE since he underwent spinal surgery, but McMahon has resumed working remotely for WWE, with Dave Meltzer reporting on Wrestling Observer Radio. McMahon made significant changes to the September 11th edition of Raw on Monday. Paul Triple H Levesque also made his own changes, and the switches were said to be probably for the better. This is Vince McMahon getting more involved, and that is certainly up to Dave Meltzer's opinion that it was probably for the better. While there were teasers of a Vince McMahon return, and we all remember the Raw after WrestleMania when McMahon made sweeping changes and completely disrupted the show, ultimately Triple H is so firmly in charge that massive changes have come. I do want to point out a few little moments though where people didn't see this one coming. WrestleTalk wrote up an article saying why there likely won't be huge WWE changes right away after Vince McMahon retirement. A new report has indicated there won't be any drastic changes for a while following Vince's retirement. Many fans have theorised that with McMahon now out of the picture, there will be noticeable changes to the WWE product. Per Dave Meltzer, once again, one of the things I've heard is to not expect any changes because right now they want to show Wall Street and the stockholders that everything is stable and fine. They don't want big changes. In fact, there was a huge panic when Brock walked out. It was said the worst thing possible would be it looks like Vince left and now it's just anarchy. They want everything to look as stable as possible to make it look like it's a smooth transition and that the company is in good hands and doesn't fall apart without Vince McMahon. I should point out this was during the brief period when Bruce Pritchard was in charge of creative. It was only a couple of days until the WWE started making some massive changes. Via Bleacher Report, Triple H promoted to WWE Chief Content Officer after taking over creative. And when we talk about why the WWE does not need Vince McMahon, this is the main reason why. There's plenty more that I'll go into, but Triple H's promotion essentially ensured that Vince McMahon would never be needed or in fact wanted ever again. The actual in-ring product has massively improved. So has morale. So has storytelling. There is just so much that is improved. And I take you back to that quote. Triple H allowed us to change the wrestling business. We go now to Sportskeeda. Everything got better in WWE after Vince McMahon left and Triple H came to power. This is a quote from Dutch Mantel, who states, "Do you see how quickly all this has moved? 5 months ago, 6 months ago, we were all looking at Smackdown and saying, man, they are dead. They had nothing moving, and I remember saying they had no bench. They had nothing to go to. But then, of course, things happened. The Vince removal actually got WWE a lot of publicity. And when we got Triple H in there, and he's used to his type of booking, which has been proven to work. I've spoken at length about the WWE's use of the press, particularly mainstream press, to take bad moments and turn them into huge wins. The amount of people who started tuning into the WWE immediately after Vince McMahon left is very clear and very obvious, not just when it comes to social media and the media in general, but also when it comes to the ratings. There was a huge instantaneous impact because people were curious to see what would happen next. Lapsed fans who had either switched to a competitor or just weren't interested in watching wrestling came back to give Triple H a shot. NXT fans who were religiously only NXT viewers were willing to give the WWE proper a shot again. And it did create this whole vibe that we can turn this around, that this is for us again. A vibe that was massively harmed whenever Vince McMahon tried to encroach and Triple H would bat him away and say, "Not today, Satan." One of the big changes made by Triple H was bringing wrestlers back who had previously left the company. On November 7th, 2 months after that CCO position was created, GameSpot reporting that 14 wrestlers WWE rehired after Vince McMahon left, and there are quite a few, including those in that picture. We have Emma, Bray Wyatt, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, we have Karrion Kross, we have Scarlett, we have Bronson Reed, we have Tegan Knox. There are so many people who've returned to the company. We have Braun Strowman, who previously found himself without a job. How he was able to get this over the line is a mystery to me, and there's plenty of wrestlers right now that aren't being used, but that's not a bad thing because that allows us to rotate. As a viewer, that rotation is essential because it means you're not always seeing the same faces so much that you get bored of them. As a wrestler, it's also essential because it allows you to take some time off, spare yourself from injury, and actually breathe for a moment. The days of wrestlers working 200 shows in a year are thankfully behind us because of those rehirings. Because of Triple H, the quality of life for a wrestler is much higher, and the quality of entertainment as a viewer is much higher as well. The Sun, a leading tabloid in the UK under the control of the Murdoch family, are even reporting on this. Changing of the guard. WWE changed a number of old rules after Vince McMahon's exit and Triple H's takeover, including mentioning rivals AEW. The culture of fear of the opposition departed with Vince McMahon. Changes include lifting bans on certain words, giving some wrestlers their first names back. WWE superstars are now also allowed to mention rival company AEW on social media platforms, and other changes that Triple H is allowing the mention of referees by name. That culture of fear vanishing. And I think we all remember how immediate the change was in commentary when Michael Cole stopped having someone shouting in his ear every other second. When Vince McMahon was looking to return, we have a report here from What Culture. Top WWE names reject Vince McMahon return plans. They quote from Fightful Select, stating a WWE higher-up had said, "It would be a really selfish move for Vince to come back under any circumstances. The reason he left, how business is done since then, it'd be really selfish. But selfish activities are what led to him leaving in the first place. Free lines, free uses of the word selfish. People didn't want him back because of the destabilizing influence he could be providing." I just want to grab that quote in particular, how business has done since then. The people actually counting the numbers in WWE, even they don't want Vince back. The improvements are so massive and so monstrous that WWE staff were willing to leave if Vince McMahon actually returned. Via PW Mania, some WWE talent considering leaving if Vince McMahon returns to creative full time. According to sources, at least one person has been preparing for life after WWE. We don't have confirmation that releases are on the way, but some people in the company believe that people will be cut, particularly those who haven't been seen in a significant role on TV in recent weeks. Another talent reportedly said they will just ride out the rest of their contract with the company, which is something that was happening while Vince McMahon was in charge. Daniel Bryan went to AEW and became Bryan Danielson. Cesaro went to AEW and became Claudio Castagnoli again. People were leaving under Vince McMahon, so threats to leave aren't empty. People were already actively doing so. There were also, as always in wrestling media, some slightly questionable exclusives. This claims to be an exclusive report that WWE have removed Vince McMahon's sign backstage where it said Vince's office. I don't think this is really worth tagging as an exclusive and even taking the 3 minutes to read, to be honest, but hey, it's a change and House of Wrestling are happy to report it. We've talked about how things changed backstage. We've talked about the wrestlers. We've talked about the viewers. Let's talk for a minute about the actual business. The business of wrestling. WWE Raw tops cable ratings as Triple H era stays hot. This is via Forbes. The ratings for WWE on both Raw and SmackDown going up. WWE Raw garnered 1.978 million viewers for last night's broadcast, up 1% from last week's viewership, as Raw continues to hover in the 2 million viewer range in the McMahon-Helmsley regime. Raw was number 1 on cable and number 2 in broadcast primetime rating behind The Bachelorette. Viewers remain intrigued by WWE's ongoing changes in the Triple H era following the July 22nd retirement/resignation of Vince McMahon. In a surprise ending to McMahon's decades-long stronghold on the WWE product, Paul Triple H Levesque was subsequently named WWE's new head of creative. The final Raw broadcast under Vince garnered 1.765 million viewers. Since then, Raw's drawn no less than 1.9 million viewers in 4 consecutive weeks. What this means is that business was good, and business continues to be good. Without Vince McMahon, Triple H is creating storylines and characters that we're enjoying more. He's got a deeper roster, which is allowing viewers to not get so tired of certain wrestlers, and allowing the wrestlers to not get so tired themselves with the constant use and constant wrestling action that they are required to provide for us. It means they can have a show in Saudi Arabia and still have the depth to have a live show elsewhere. It means they can have shorter, well-maintained pay-per-views and premium live events with more rotation, more fresh matchups, and just more creativity in play. Business is good. The money coming into the company is benefiting, unfortunately, Vince McMahon, but you can't win them all. Meanwhile, they have fended off serious challenges from competitors like AEW. At the moment, AEW is starting to sink again in the ratings. A large part of that is through no wrongdoing of their own. It is to do with the fact that Vince McMahon, the heel at the top of the WWE, has been removed, and a new exciting face in Triple H has taken over. The actual WWE, which you always had to feel a little bit dirty watching because you knew the money was going into the hands of unscrupulous people, that has been washed clean. You don't hate watch anymore, and that's what the WWE was all about. The Attitude Era was built on hate the WWE, love Steve Austin and The Rock. You were supposed to hate Mr. McMahon. You were supposed to hate the company. Right now, I don't hate the company. I'm not hate watching. I'm enjoying watching wrestling. If there is anything that you miss about Vince McMahon, let me know in the comments. If there are great things I've missed about Triple H, let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole thing. Be sure to hit like on the video, subscribe for more, and I'll see you very soon.